What's up everyone, and welcome back to another Husky House video. If you love the idea of rescuing a husky and want to get one, or maybe you just got one and you're like, holy what do I do? This dog is out of control. I hope this video helps. Today I will be covering some of the challenges that we came across, how we overcame them, and our overall personal experience when we rescued our 10-month-old Siberian Husky Zion from a shelter. First things first, when you bring a shelter husky that's already older home, they're going to go bat crazy at first. You will probably think you just made a huge mistake and you might even cry. But I promise you guys, it is the most rewarding thing to see a shelter husky transform into the most loyal, well-behaved, loving, and caring lifelong best friend you'll ever have. The best advice I can give you to help you through this phase is to be understanding of where they just came from and how poorly they were treated. They maybe got to go on a few short walks in a day and were locked up the rest of the time. They have so much pent-up energy, they have no idea who you are. They don't care about anything except for doing zoomies and not listening to you at all until they get them out. Let's get into the challenges that we faced with Zion. Challenge number 1, trauma. He was not only traumatized, but he was left in a crate in a shelter surrounded by his own pee and poop for days, which led him to not be able to trust as easily. As much as you know your new husky can trust you, your new husky might not know that about you quite yet. Throughout this process of you getting to know your new husky, vice versa, just know that they've been hurt in the past and it's going to take time for them to warm up to you. The best thing for you to do is give your husky space and let them come up to you. Let them sniff you without trying to pet them every single time. This will help them get to know you and appreciate you in the end. It took Zion 3 weeks until he came up just to lay by us and get some cuddles for the very first time. It's a hard thing to do, but ultimately it will build respect. After doing all of these things, Zion is now obsessed with us. He literally has no idea what personal space is. Challenge number 2, escaping. Zion has honestly escaped from us at least 5 times. Husky owners really aren't lying when they tell you that huskies are truly escape artists. This has everything to do with lack of trust, lack of running and burning energy, and lack of exploring. The first time Zion escaped from us, he was just running around in the backyard doing his own thing, and out of nowhere, he just jumped over our 6-foot fence. We learned our lesson, and every single time we put Zion in the backyard until we trusted him, he was on a 30-foot tie-out leash so he could still have his freedom but not escape. With huskies being naturally curious dogs with high prey drives, if they aren't trained properly and they don't trust you, this is the ultimate combination for them to try and escape every single chance that they get. It's a long process, but I promise if you're consistent, it will pay off. Zion has been with us for almost 2 years now, and he's completely 100% capable of being trusted off leash. His recall is great, he trusts us, he loves us completely, and because of that, he's earned his freedom to explore as he pleases. If you want a more in-depth video on how to train your husky to be an off-leash dog, drop a comment in the comment section. Challenge number 3, socializing. We can now agree with huskies being naturally curious and loving to run and explore. Taking your husky to a dog park is a great form of exercise to release all of their pent-up energy. But huskies, they're pot stirrers. They're the people on reality TV that spread rumors, pop some popcorn, and sit back to watch the show. If your husky isn't properly socialized and dominant, they will start fights. It's definitely not a good idea to take your husky you just rescued to a dog park until they're socialized in smaller settings, are good at recall, and you know them better. We made this very mistake with Zion. We got him and we were like, okay, let's take him to the dog park so he can run around because he seems like he has a ton of energy. We hadn't even parked the car yet. He was jumping from the back seat to the front seat, back and forth, howling and growling, and acting like a complete nuthead. We just thought he was super excited, but when we got in, the first thing he did was try and fight the dogs. This was obviously not okay, so we tried to get him, leave, and it took an hour to round this kid up. He ran away from us, he would not listen, he was going up and necking other dogs to initiate his dominant behavior, and it was just really embarrassing. Once we introduced him to one new dog at a time through friends and family, and worked on his dominant behavior, correcting bad play, and practicing recall, he became so much better. Now Zion runs around the dog park, still stirring the pot, but in a nice way. He's just a husky that loves to piss other dogs off, but he doesn't try to fight anymore, he just loves the chase. But getting your dog used to other dogs isn't the only form of socializing. They also need to get used to kids, other family members, other people you're close to, cats or any other pets you might have, people of different races, and younger and older people. If they aren't familiar with these things and you bring them into an environment where they can come across any of these, they might freak out and handle the situation really bad. Challenge number 4, aggressive behavioral issues. This is a really common issue in any rescue dog since they've had a very unreliable and hard life before you came along. It can be really scary at first, but also something that needs to be dealt with ASAP. With Huskies, if they don't have a leader or someone that they trust to be the alpha of their pack, they will take it into their own paws. This is why it's super important to give your new rescue dog space to get used to being in their new home around their new owner, but also correct bad behavior. With Scion, he would get angry with us and show aggression if we tried to take any toys away from him, get onto him for chewing on something he wasn't supposed to chew on, and really just any sort of dominance towards him. We had a very dominant alpha husky on our hands. We tried positive reinforcement, distracting him with something else, being super nice and sweet. At this point, we really have just exhausted every single option and method we needed to be dominant towards him, but he was still showing his teeth, growling, and being aggressive. Once he started to actually bite us, he crossed the line and it was not okay. We felt as if we had no other option than to resort to an e-collar. The way we use this is when anytime he showed unnecessary aggression towards us, we would vibrate him. Once his behavior changed to a submissive behavior and he was listening, we used the beep for positive reinforcement. That way when he heard that beep, he would understand that that's a good boy. Now Zion never wears his e-collar. He would never bite us again, we fully trust each other, and there's no aggression in any way. This method may not be everyone's cup of tea, but I will say that if you use the e-collar properly and don't abuse the process, it will work and be very rewarding in the end. Huskies are really stubborn and hard-headed, and this is just what worked for us. Challenge number 5, leash training and reactivity. Huskies get distracted really easily, and they're sled dogs, so they kinda love to pull. When we were in the waiting room, waiting to meet Zion, we saw a staff member through the window taking him on a walk, and he was pulling her so hard that poor lady was being forced to run and literally could not stop. He was doing that in a slip lead. It was in this moment that we realized if we got Zion, we would be in for a rough ride on walks. At first, we did everything we possibly could to make positive reinforcement work. We tried to give him treats when he would walk beside us, didn't care. We tried the quick stop method with just a collar on, didn't work. We tried clipping the leash on the front of his harness, didn't work either. We tried a gentle lead, and guess what? Didn't work. We were really consistent with each of these methods for a long time before changing, but nothing was breaking this man's stride. We decided to resort to the e-collar on walks too. Since he knows what the e-collar does from working with him in it for his aggression training, we figured it could help with leash training. And it did. Every time Zion got to the end of his slack on the leash, we would just vibrate him and do quick snaps. This worked wonders. Now, Zion doesn't have to wear the e-collar anymore on walks, and as you can see from this video, he's walking super good. It really just takes a lot of consistency. Challenge number 6, getting him comfortable with baths and grooming. This is honestly one of the hardest things we've had to teach Zion so far. He wouldn't touch water with a 10-foot pole, which made giving him his first bath super hard. He was so stinky from the shelter and he really needed a good bath, but it just was not happening. If you don't like taking your dog to the groomers and you want to personally give them a bath, it would probably be a good idea to get them acclimated to water as soon as possible. Whether you live by the ocean or a lake or ponds, whatever it may be, they need to be used to water. They also need to be used to you. If they don't trust you, nor feel comfortable around you, it's going to be really hard for you to get them in that bathtub. With it being such a tight, crammed space, it's probably really overwhelming for them. One trick that you could try is if your dog loves peanut butter, you could smear peanut butter around the sides of the bathtub so that they lick it and they're distracted while you're giving them a bath. Just remember that throughout all of this, your dog has been through a lot and this could be a trigger for something traumatizing that's happened to them in the past. Lots of love and lots of treats is what's going to get you through baths. A few years later, and Zion still is not thrilled to take baths, but he loves us and he trusts us enough that he really doesn't care anymore. But baths aren't the only thing that your dog needs to get used to. They need to get used to being brushed as well. Huskies need to be brushed at least a few times a week so that their coat doesn't get matted and ruined. Brushing your husky is super important, and repetitions is going to make your husky realize that it's not as bad as it seems. We brush Zion 4 times a week at least for about 15 to 20 minutes, and he just naps while we do it. So there's hope. You just have to be consistent and really comforting. These were the challenges that we faced with Zion. As you can see, there were a lot, and they aren't small things that can easily be fixed. Once a dog has a bad habit and is already this old, it's really hard to break those bad habits. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out our community tab to vote which videos you like to see best, and click that subscribe button to keep hearing more tips and tricks on training your Siberian Husky.